Hi, good day. So this is going to be the continuation of our last discussion. So natapos tayo sa silver point. So ngayon naman ay magko-continue tayo to sculpture. Okay, so to define sculpture, so sculpture is the art of making three-dimensional representations using carving, casting, modeling, or fabrication. So it's different from painting or in drawing. So sa mga ibang visual art is yun ay ginagawa kadalasan sa flat surfaces. So which means they are two-dimensional. Pero pag sinabi natin sculpture, they are three-dimensional, having height, width, and length. So, what are the materials used in sculpture? So we have different materials. First and foremost, we have stone. So example of stone, we have like marble, we have granite, and then we have jade, yung mga ganon. So ano naman yung stone as a material or medium for sculpture? Medyo mahirap siyang i-manipulate. Why? Because it is hard and brittle. So it's a hard and brittle substance. Now, it's really tricky. It's really difficult to manipulate them. Why? Because yun nga, it needs a lot of skill. Kasi kailangan parang yun nga, mamaya isang pukpok natin ganyan, mapingas siya or mabasag siya or mag-crack siya ng buo. So, it's really hard to manipulate stone. So, you have to be really careful. So, light-handed, but at the same time, you have to be like a professional when it comes to carving stones. Kasi nga, medyo mahirap. And of course, the materials, the stones used in sculpture is hindi yung basta-basta na mga stones lang. Ito yung kadalasan mamahaling mga stones. So, medyo mahirap talaga siyang i-maintain, mahirap siyang i-manipulate. Next is we have ivory. So ivory is one of the rarest commodities right now in the world of sculpture. Why? Because syempre ivory comes from the tusk of elephants. Now, as we all know, elephants are endangered species na. So hindi mo yan kagad-kagad na makukuha mo yung ivory tapos pag nagkamali ka, pwede kang kumuha ulit ng isa pang ivory kasi nga limited lang yung number ng mga ivory ngayon dahil nga pinoprotektahan na yung mga elephants natin. So, since ivory is a hard white substance and yun nga, rare siya, mamahalin din ito. Kaya medyo mahirap din siyang i-handle kasi the pressure of knowing that this material is expensive. At the same time, yun nga, medyo matigas din siyang klase ng material. So, medyo mahirap din siyang i-manipulate. So, yun nga, mahihirapan tayo. Kaya, medyo mahirap yung process talaga ng sculpture. This is not an easy task actually. Next is we have metal. Surprisingly, metal, although it's also sturdy and durable and hard, pero it's not really difficult to manipulate kasi it can be cast, it can be cut, drilled, filed, it can be bent, forged, and stamped. So, although metal as a material, matigas siya, pero actually, we can manipulate it kasi when applied to heat, medyo lumalambot siya ng konti and in that state, pwede natin siyang form into whatever figure that we want to achieve. So, yun nga, pwede natin siyang gupitin, pwede siyang i-drill, pwede natin siyang i-cast. So, tutunawin natin siya, tapos ibubuhos natin siya sa hulmahan para susundan niya yung kung ano mang hugis ang gusto niya. So, ayun. So, it could be forged then and also it could be stamped. Okay? So, it's easier than stone and ivory actually. So, metal is easier to manipulate as a material for sculpture. Next, we have plaster. So, plaster, commonly known as plaster of Paris, pwede nyo siyang bilhin sa mga hardware. So, yun nga, ano siya, para siyang white powder, tapos titimplahin nyo siya sa liquid or sa tubig. Tapos, pag nasa right consistency na siya, yon kailangan ibuhos nyo sa hulmahan. Tapos, kapag natuyo siya, para siyang chalk yung kanyang consistency. It's just that it's a little bit harder than chalk. Kasi yung chalk, pwede mong i-break ng ganyan. Pero yung plaster, medyo mas matigas siya ng konti. Pero still, mabilis pa rin siya or madali pa rin siyang mabasag para pa rin siyang chalk. Parang upgraded version of chalk lang siya. So, ayun nga, pagka natuyo na siya, tatanggalin mo siya ngayon sa hulmahan, tapos ganun na yung shape niya. Okay? So, yun yung ginagamit natin kadalasan sa tawag nito, sa casting. Okay, so it could be used in mannequins, yun, paggawa natin ng mannequins. Pero iba yung mannequins na nasa SM kasi those are plastic. Pero some mannequins are created using plaster. So, yun nga, pwedeng gamitan ng molds and architectural decorations and other indoor sculptures. Okay? Kasi ito yung madalas na, yung mga figurines. Yung mga figurines, ayan, mga examples din sila ng plaster. Okay? Next, we have clay. So, clay is actually the easiest material na pwede natin gamitin sa sculpture kasi nga, these can be used in modeling. So, it possesses little strength. Hindi siya pumapalag sa inyo. So, very malleable siya. Pwede nyo siyang hulmahin gamit yung kamay nyo mismo. So, hindi nyo kailangan masyadong mag-effort when it comes to clay. You just have to be very skillful in adding kasi in addition siya eh. Addition yung process niya. Kasi in sculpture, we have two types of processes. The first one is addition. Okay? So, addition is from a single hole na maliit, dadagdagan nyo siya ng dadagdagan ng materials, tapos papasakan nyo siya ng papasakan, tsaka nyo siya huhulmahin para maging figure siya na gusto ninyo. Pero pag sinabi naman natin na subtractive yung process, from a big chunk, halimbawa, stone or wood, from a big chunk, yung magka-carve kayo, babawasan nyo naman siya ng babawasan to achieve your desired form. Okay? So, for clay naman, this one is additive. Okay? So, nag-a-add kayo ng clay na nag-a-add in order for you to achieve your desired form. So, for this one, clay, ito, very little strength lang siya. Madaling-madali lang siyang i-form. Hindi naman katulad siya ng stone na brittle or ng ivory na matigas din. Hindi mo yun mapipipi na ganyan kung anong shape yung gusto mo. Unlike yung clay yon, madali siyang i-form. Next is glass. So, glass is a medium which is hard and also brittle and transparent. So, actually, very hard din to na i-manipulate kasi you have to know your thermodynamics in order for you to effectively use glass as your material for sculpture. Kasi nga, dahil nga babasagin siya, it's very fragile. So, ma-achieve mo lang na mabago yung kanyang shape kapag gagamitan mo siya ng heat. Okay? So, yun nga, kailangan, ano ka din, skillful ka rin sa paggamit ng heat in order for you to create a beautiful glass sculpture. Okay, and we have terracotta. So, for terracotta, clay din siya. It's a kind of clay, but its distinction is its color. So, it's a brownish red color. Madalas ginagamit to sa paggawa ng mga palayok, ng mga banga na pinaglalagyan natin ng tubig sa probinsya. Yung mga sculptures din, if you're familiar with yung sa The Mummy Part 3, yung may terracotta army, yon. So, ginagawa din siya sa paggawa ng sculptures. Pero, yun din, unlike nung clay, yung clay kasi may mga air dry clay, may mga clay din naman na kailangan mo lang ibilad, pero yung terracotta, in order for it to stick together and to be sturdy, you have to bake it. Kailangan talaga siya na hinuhurno or binibake, okay? So, para hindi lang basta ibibilad, basta kailangan siyang i-bake para tumigas siya at maging matibay. So, we have basic sculptures or basic sculpture techniques. Okay, so what are these? So we have carving. So again, carving is an example of a subtractive process or subtractive method. So from a single chip or a single block of wood, you're going to cut away or chip away shapes, or you are going to cut away or chip away pieces of wood in order to achieve the desired effect. So for example, itong sculpture na to, nanggaling ito sa malaking tipak ng wood. Tapos unti-unti siyang inukit. Kaya nga siya carving, pag-uukit. Okay, so that is subtractive. What about modeling? So when we say modeling, parang katulad sa modeling clay. This is one of the easiest sculpture techniques. Why? Because ginagamit natin to sa mga malalambot na mga materials lamang. Kasi hindi mo pwedeng i-model yung bato. Kasi nga, pag sinabi nating modeling, it possesses little strength. So you could easily form it with the use of your hands. So ang ginagamit natin dito ay clay, modeling clay. Kasi yun ay mga malalambot na mga materials. So, unlike ng mga hard materials or brittle materials, kadalasan carving yung ginagamit natin doon. So, modeling is additive. Next is we have casting. Pag casting naman, ito yung hinuhulma. Okay? So, yung kanina, carving, inuukit, modeling, sa Filipino naman ito ay paghuhulma. Ito naman ay ang paghuhulma ng kamay yung sa modeling, yung casting naman yung paghuhulma gamit ng hulmahan. Meron kayong mold kung tawagin. So your mold is the negative shape. So katulad ng discussion natin, yung hulmahan ninyo, yung background. Para pag binaklas nyo yon, ang matitira is yung desired effect ninyo. So for example, ang ginagawa minsan is, halimbawa gusto nyo maghulma, di ba yung sa mga pader, kapag nagbubuhos kayo ng poste, may hulmahan muna kayo ng mga plywood na ganyan eh. So, tas binuhusan nyo yun ng semento, pag tinanggal nyo ngayon yung plywood, hugis poste na siya. So, parang ganun yung casting. Meron kayong hulmahan, and then ibubuhos nyo yung liquefied material. So, halimbawa, liquid steel, or plaster of Paris ba yun, or wax yung nandun. Tapos, huhulmahin nyo siya, ibubuhos nyo siya sa hulmahan, tapos let it dry, tapos pag dry na siya, pwede nyo na siyang baklasin, tapos it would reveal the desired effect there. Tapos pwede nyo na lang yun na medyo lihain, pero para medyo smooth yung mga surfaces. Okay? So this is an example of a bronze casting. Okay? And lastly, we have assembling or fabrication. So when we say assembling or fabrication, you are going to put together different materials to create an assembled sculpture. So in order for you to achieve your desired effect or your desired form, you are going to put together different materials. So yung mga gumagawa ng robots using used kitchen utensils like fork, a spoon, so, tas ano nila yun, wini-welding nila together in order to create like a robot. That is an example of assembling or fabrication. What else? Yung sa Pasko, yung mga Christmas trees na ginagamitan ng mga recycled materials, that is an example also of fabrication or assembling. So, katulad nito, ang gawa ni Josephine Torralba. So, using plastic, brass, copper, steel, and gold. Okay, next is we have architecture. So actually, I have really few background knowledge on architecture kasi hindi naman dun linya yung course ko. But as far as I know, and of course, it's a very typical denotation or connotation to architecture. Architecture is the art of creating and designing buildings and infrastructure. So they are more concerned with the aesthetic side of the buildings and infrastructures. So the difference between architecture and engineering is concerned with making things happen. Kasi architecture is design, okay? And then they have to parang coordinate with the engineers to see if their plans are actually feasible in reality. Okay? Kasi sometimes architects are so ambitious because they want their buildings to be unique. But they don't really or they cannot be really feasible in real life. So, yung mga engineers yung parang nagsasabi kung pwede ba talaga tong gawin. Would it be sturdy or maganda lang siya but after a few years magko-collapse na yung building. So, kaya mahalaga din na architects and engineers are working hand in hand. Okay? So, ayun. So what are the materials used in architecture? We have rock materials, of course, like bricks, like hollow blocks, cement. So, ano yung mga quality ng graba na gagamitin. So, yun, materials natin na use in architecture. Of course, we have rock materials. We have metal materials. So, of course, yung metal for fences, for the posts or poste or yung mismong foundations ng infrastructures. May iba't ibang klase din ng metal. Depende dun sa part ng bahay or sa part ng building na gagamitin. Iba yung metal na ginagamit natin sa floors. Iba yung metal na ginagamit natin sa poste, sa kisame, what metals are applicable for creating like a truss system or kung cantilever yung gagamitin, anong klaseng metal yung gagamitin kasi hindi naman lahat ng metal ay pare-parehas din. Okay? So next is we have organic materials. So organic materials, of course, yung mga galing sa nature, like wood, like yung mga residue ng mga plants, yung mga shells, yung mga ganon. Okay? So yung mga limestones actually somewhat borderline from rock and organic materials din yun. Kasi yung limestones ay, yun nga, medyo may mga fossils doon ng mga, ng mga living things before. Okay? And next, we have hybrid materials. For hybrid materials, these are not just 100% rock or 100% metal. So, ito yung mga pinaghalo-halo ng mga materials. Halimbawa, if you're familiar with yung ginagawa nila ngayon na yung mga wastes sa dagat na mga plastic, imbes na pakalat-kalat sila sa dagat at nakaka-harm pa sila sa marine life, ang ginagawa doon ay minimix sila together in order to what? Create hybrid materials na pwede natin gamitin sa infrastructure. Okay, next is we have synthetic materials. So for synthetic materials naman, they look like the original material but with some modifications that correct the kumaga repercussions or yung mga weak points ng original material. For example, we have synthetic glass. So it looks like glass pero it's not as fragile as the original glass kasi nga medyo may halong plastic na rin sila at some point. So medyo mas durable sila in terms of like earthquake or kapag may nambabato, hindi sila masyadong fragile. So since I'm not really that knowledgeable about architecture, so I'm just going to suggest to you some YouTube channels that I find very informative. So pinapanood ko rin sila. So ito nga si Leon Oliver Austria. So top notcher. So one of the top-notchers ng licensure examinations for architecture. So, makikita natin dun sa channel niya, very informative. Even myself, kahit na hindi ako architecture graduate or hindi related sa building design or sa building mismo, construction, yung aking course, I find the terms very easy to understand and the concepts very easy to understand because he's really efficient in explaining these things. Ayun. So, I think it would be helpful for you to understand or to watch his channel. So, this is not a paid advertisement, pero anyway, I would recommend kasi syempre hindi naman ako fountainhead ng knowledge. Hindi naman ako familiar with architecture. So, might as well suggest to you someone who is really knowledgeable about the matter. Next is we have Slater Young. So siya ay nakilala sa PBB pero siya ay isang Pinoy engineer and actually very informative din yung kanyang channel. So more on the engineering naman siya. Pero yun nga, maganda din yung channel niya, especially in your course, engineering. Although civil engineering siya sa pagkakaalam ko, pero ano siya, very informative pa rin siya kasi related pa rin naman yung course nyo. And if you want to learn about electrical engineering, so ito din ay Circuit Bread, ito din napapanood ko rin siya. Maganda yung ano niya, yung channel niya kasi parang sumasagot siya ng mga FAQs about electrical engineering and he also discusses some of the subjects, some of the concepts in electrical engineering that most students find difficult. So, ayun, kindly check them out kasi it would help your course. It's very, very nice. Ayun. Pero some of you might have probably checked these already. So, next is we have awards and citations. This would be the last part of our discussion. So we have, of course, artists, they pour a lot of effort in their artwork. So hindi naman pwede na puro thank you lang tayo, di ba? So yung mga artists and artisans natin, they put a lot of effort in their craft. So it's really important to honor them and give them, of course, recognition. So kaya yung mga artists dito sa bansa, meron tayong state-initiated given awards and citations. Actually, we have two major awards given to Filipino artists and artisans. And the first one is Orden ng Pambansang Alagad ng Sining or Order of National Artists. Kanino natin siya binibigay? So, binibigay natin siya sa mga individuals na malalaki yung contribution nila at significant yung contribution nila to the development of Philippine arts, particularly in these areas. So you have music, dance, theater, visual arts, literature, film, and architecture. So for visual arts, magkakasama na dyan yung sculpture, painting, drawing. Okay? So kapag malaki yung ambag nila sa musikang Pilipino, sa sayaw ng Pilipino, sa teatrong Pilipino, sa yung visual arts nga ng Pilipinas, sa literatura ng mga Pilipino, sa pelikulang Pilipino, at sa arkitekturang Pilipino, dito sila binibigyan ngayon ng Order of National Artists. So makikita nyo, majority of these are fine arts. Okay? So, sino ang nagbibigay ng award? So, they are going to be recommended by NCCA or National Commission for the Culture and the Arts and the Cultural Center of the Philippines or CCP. Pag nakita ni CCP at ni NCCA na itong tao na to ay malaki yung naging ambag niya sa isang larang ng sining sa Pilipinas, pag nakita nito yung tao na to na malaki yung naging ambag niya, they are going to recommend this person to the President of the Philippines. So, and upon signing the recommendation, so isa-sign ni President yung recommendation kapag inapprove niya, ang mangyari, maa-awardan na yung tao na ni-recommend ng NCCA and ng CCP. So the first recipient of National Artist Award is Fernando Amorsolo in 1972. So he was National Artist for Visual Arts kasi he was a painter. And ano yung kadalasan na nagiging topic niya sa kanyang painting? Local color of Filipinos. Pag sinabi nating local color, this is the rural life or again, the local life of Philippines. So, mga babae na nagtatanim or yung mga babae na may mga hawak na bilao or yung mga magsasaka na pauwi na, yun yung mga nagiging topic niya sa kanyang painting. And it has been a very important part of Philippine painting. Why? Because both Filipinos and foreigners, pag nakita nila yung painting, they would get this idea na this is the life of the Filipinos in the rural areas. Okay, so parang na-i-introduce yung buhay ng mga Pilipino sa rural areas doon sa mga painting ni Fernando Amorsolo. Okay, so what are the incentives and privileges na makukuha ng isang tao na naging recipient ng National Artist Award? So number one, they have rank and title. So katulad ni Fernando Amorsolo, meron siyang rank and title. Like Fernando Amorsolo, recipient of the National Artist Award for Visual Arts. So next, we have medallion or insignia and a citation. So every time na meron siyang sasabihin or anytime na meron siyang gagawin, kailangan nakasite siya, tapos meron siyang iuwi na medal. Next is, meron siyang cash awards and the host of benefits. Anong benefits yon? Bukod dun sa cash award na makukuha niya, meron siyang monthly life pension, meron siyang medical and hospitalization na sasagutin ng bansang Pilipinas, and of course, life insurance coverage. So, pag halimbawa, nategi na siya, na-deads na siya, yung Pilipinas na yung sasagot lahat ng expenses niya. Okay? Next, meron siyang state funeral and burial sa libingan ng mga bayani. So, he will be buried in libingan ng mga bayani. So, no need to find kung saan siya ibuburol or ililibing kasi doon talaga siya ililibing kasi malaki yung naging ambag niya sa bansa. At state funeral yung ang kanyang parang ibibigay sa kanya. Number 5, or lastly, a place of honor or designated area during national state functions along with recognition or acknowledgement at cultural events. So, halimbawa, parang cultural month or arts month sa Philippines, magkakaroon talaga sila ng parang designated area para doon i-exhibit yung mga naambag nila sa sining ng Pilipinas. Okay? So, lagi silang kasama doon sa celebration natin ng arts month. So, yun yung mga privileges and incentives na nakukuha ng mga National Artist Award recipients. Now, what about the second highest award? We have Gawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan or National Living Treasure Award. Okay? So, ito naman yung National Living Treasure. Kayo naman to, ginagawad. So, these are given to those who have distinctive and high level of technical and artistic excellence and have been passed on to and widely practiced by the present generation in his community. So in short, ito ay pinapasa sa mga members ng ating mga katutubong kultura kung saan sila ay mga masters or sila ay skillful dun sa traditional art ng bansa natin. So, traditional art, ibig sabihin, local art natin, traditional art ng bansa natin, mula sa tribo nila. So, sila ay mataas yung level nila ng technical and artistic excellence. At, hindi lang nagtatapos doon, dapat yun ay pinapasa nila sa mga susunod na generations. So, makikita natin yung examples. Ayan, yung paggamit ng mga traditional na mga instruments. Yan po ay examples ng mga pinipreserve natin na mga traditional na nagawain. Ngayon, kung sila ay mga masters nito at ipinapasa nila ngayon sa mga susunod na generation, sila ay mabibigyan ng Gawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan or National Living Treasures Award. Okay? So, ano yung mga iba pang mga areas or larang na pwede nilang panggalingan pag sila ay marunong sa traditional weaving? So, traditional weaving ng mga tribo or yung mga gumagamit din ng pangablan, yung malaking instrument, tas gumaganyan-ganyan. So, yun yung yun yung weaving, traditional weaving natin, traditional carving. Okay, so we have plastic arts, textile, pottery, and other artistic expressions of traditional culture. And kanina, sa Order of National Artists, kung yun ay makikita natin, more on fine arts, ito naman, more on functional art. So, mga artisans ng traditional culture ang pinagbibigyan nito. So, this was created in provision of RA 7355 by the NCCA in 1992. So, what are the incentives and privileges na makukuha naman ng mga recipients nito? Number one, specially designed gold medallion. So, meron ding medal. And number two, initial grant of 100,000 pesos. So, upon receiving the award, may kaakibat na yun na 100,000 pesos. After nila makareceive ng award and 100,000 pesos, the following months after, magkakaroon sila ng 10,000 monthly stipend for life. So, hanggang mamatay sila, meron na silang pension na 10,000 per month. Okay? So, sometimes, depende dun sa ambag nila, nagiging 14,000 yun. So, nag-i-increase din siya. So, they have also a maximum cumulative amount of 750,000 pesos. So, for medical and hospitalization benefits. Halimbawa, nagkasakit sila. So, nagkasakit sila ngayon, tapos kailangan nila magpa-opera. So, ang nagastos nila ay 150,000 dun sa opera nila. So, may butal pa sila, may sukli pa sila dun sa 750,000. Yun ay pwede pa nilang gamitin ulit sa mga susunod nila na hospitalization bills. Okay? So, malaking tulong na sa kanila yun, privilege na sa kanila yon. And they have a funeral assistance and a tribute fit for a national living treasure. So, hindi sila nililibing sa libingan ng mga bayani kasi nga alam natin, itong mga to ay mga nanggaling sa tribo. And for every tribe, they have their own funeral rites, they have their own parang area kung saan nila ilalagak yung bangkay ng kanilang member nung tribo nila. And kadalasan, yung mga nakaka-receive ng award na to, nagiging parang elder nila dun sa tribo nila. So, hindi nila pwede hindi pwedeng basta-basta kunin ng state yung bangkay nung recipient ng Gawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan Award. So, yung mga katribo, yung talagang magde-decide kung saan nila gustong ilibing yung katribo nila. Kaya ang binibigay ng state lang dito ay funeral assistance and also a tribute. Okay? So this ends our discussion in Unit 2. I hope that you have learned a lot of things and I hope na nakaabot kayo dito sa end ng video at pinanood nyo yung entirety ng video. Okay, so see you in the forum. Please take down notes kung meron man kayong mga tanong para pwede nyo siyang erase kapag ka nag-synchronous classes na tayo. Okay, thank you so much everybody.